All right, first thing, no heckling from the cheap seats, okay? No, thank you very much for the Society for inviting me to be here this evening, and welcome to all of you. I'm overwhelmed by the reception. I think it's terrific that you're here. Before I start, may I have a show of hands of the people that have never golfed? Only two? Terrific. So I was going to say, because I was afraid maybe we'd be boring a lot of people, but maybe not. And what we've done here is put together some mementos from years gone by, a couple of models I threw together at the golf club, and they'll be showing up on the screen pretty soon, I'm sure. But what we have here is one of the best places to play golf in Canada. And I'll go into that later on because we haven't got to this particular golf club yet. We must go back some time. Now I've got to put my glasses on, read some of my notes, so just bear with me. Where'd you get that? That must have been 1950 or something like that. Anyway, here we go. The people I should thank, though, really are key employees here. Our manager, higher?
We can mic it, but...
Here back there is our manager, Rob Mason, our superintendent, Wade, and our... We're going to turn up or something?
Nope. But they told me that we could have a microphone, should you need it.
Oh, all right. Okay. Right.
Now what do I do to actually make this good?
Oh, there's a party going on next door, apparently. Okay.
Yeah, but check.
Is that better?
I don't think it's on yet.
Jack, if that's the club's microphone, you have to literally hold it right up to your mouth, and you have to make sure it's turned on and the green light is on.
The green light is on. I'm wondering about over here.
Yes, it has to be turned on there too. Tap it, Jack, with your
Well, I'll shout.
the microphone.
Anyway, what will be, all right. No, it's dead.
Could you find that?
What are you going to do? Pardon?
Just hold on for a second. We'll tap dance for a second. You can shout, but it would be better for everybody to hear. Well, I have your attention then. Well, we're just breaking for a second. There are many exhibits up here. Afterwards, you're welcome to stay for refreshments. I made cookies.
Oh, there are some cookies.
And these maps, by the way, were made by Jack by hand and represent the various layouts of some of the courses we'll talk about. And we have, oh, good, we're live.
Are we good?
We're good.
Yay, great. No, as I said earlier, the people that should be recognized would be our club manager, Rob Mason, our pro, Andrew, who may be in the room, I'm not sure, and our superintendent, Wade. They've done a remarkable job in taking care of us and keeping the golf course in wonderful condition, and I do thank them all, that group and their staffs, because it's been just wonderful working with them. Also, to be thanked are the people that produced the history book of St. Thomas. It was Wayne Padden, Don Anderson, Dawes Winchester, George Thurman, our brother Tom Pullen, and myself. Spent about a year, I guess it was, back in 1991 producing the book. And I'm doing a plug here right now. We have some up here for sale for $20 for those that are interested.
You have to speak into the microphone.
Can't hear me back there?
No.
Still can't hear me. Is that better?
You have to get really close.
I could get between you up there. It'd be easier. Anyway, let's go further. that better?
Take it off.
It's better, it's probably to hold it.
Will it come out? Is that better? How's that? All right. Well, I won't go back again. But that committee that worked with the golf club membership to get that booklet made was worthwhile, and most of the things I'm talking about came from that booklet. We're going on to talk about a few things that may upset some of our Scottish members in the room. Talk about how did golf start? Well, way back 2,000 years ago, the Romans were kicking little stones around with sticks. But what happened, after a while, it kind of moved north to a little country called Holland. And there they had a game called Chol, and or Cole, but anyway, it's Chol we'll call it. And they started hitting little wooden golf balls from one point to another, and the fewest number of strokes won. So they became the first actual golfers. Pardon to Dan here and any of our other Scottish ancestry people, but that's where the game started initially. And it moved to France. From France it came over to Scotland. How? Apparently Scottish businessmen visiting these Low Countries, Belgium and Holland, saw them playing this sport. And by now it's called golf, with a K, K-O-L-F. Well, they anglicized that and called it golf. And if those people that haven't been to Great Britain and played among the dunes on the seaside courses, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say this. There's no finer grass in the world than between the dunes in England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland. It's just magnificent, and it's perfect for playing a game. And why? Because the sheep were all gathered there to keep it mown, and nothing cuts grass closer to the ground than sheep. So what did sheep do? Well, they were brought onto the golf course first thing in the morning, taken off the golf course as the golfers started showing up. And what did sheep do when it got really, really windy? They dug into the side of the sand dunes. So what happens then? They make a bunker. So bunkers were caused by sheep. So whenever you think of that happening, it's their fault. So we have to thank the sheep for that part of it. So we got into the early part of the game. It progressed all through Great Britain. Eventually, it did move to North America. Apparently, legend has it that General Wolfe, when he came over to attack Quebec City, his officers had golf clubs with them. Now, whether they got to use them on the Plains of Abraham, I do not know. But as I mentioned to Peter, it's a perfect place for a 9-hole golf course for those that have been there. It never became that, of course. But the people that in the old country that played the game were, maybe need another slide here, Pete. Oh, you got them up, have you?
Yep.
Can you imagine this? This is what Mary Queen of Scots looked like when she golfed. And she was golfing 3 weeks after her husband, Lord Darnley, died. Can you imagine that now? What do you think of that? And it shows her with a wooden...
She's reportedly the first woman golfer.
Yeah, she was recognized as being the first lady golfer, and apparently quite keen at it, as you can imagine. The gentleman's attire was something like this, which I'm sure must have been very uncomfortable. Notice that they're all wooden-headed clubs. Metal-headed clubs did not come out to some time later. Wooden heads were much easier to make, and thus became the fashion at the time. What I've brought with me, and afterwards when you have a chance, come up here and look around, you'll see some very, very old golf clubs. In fact, I'll hold one in my hand right now, I'll give you an idea. Nice going, Jack. This little baby here dates back to 1795. Very valuable. There's only a few of them around. They're authentic. And you might want to, don't swing too hard because I don't want to hurt yourself. But up here we've got golf clubs going back from the early 1800s up to 1922 when this golf course was formed. One of the clubs was made in 1922. And beside me are what a brand new set of 50-year-old golf clubs looked like. That set you see with the steel shafts are brand new, never been hit, and they're 50 years old. So it's something to look at when you have a chance. So back to the game that we played, then it was kind of awkward because it was dangerous. When they finally moved up to St. Andrews, and it wasn't the first golf course, by the way, there was another course in Scotland before that, but St. Andrews being the most famous one, the rule was you teed your golf ball up within 2 yards of where the previous hole was.
Oh.
Now, that's, and I never believed that really when I was as a youngster, but I played Prestwick in the west coast of Scotland a couple of times. And have you ever played there, Frank? No. Okay. Well, Prestwick Golf Club, the first hole is not a very long par 4, and the very next tee is part of the previous green. And that's now. So you can imagine, like, so it's pretty, at that time, very dangerous. And they had crisscross holes, in fact, one going this way, one going that way across each other. And it was nothing to have people actually being hurt. What did they play with? Well, they had to play with something, so they played with wooden golf balls, and they weren't so hot because, of course, they would crack. And one old legend has it that you played the larger portion to the hole. Well, that didn't work out too well, so what happened? They invented the feathery golf ball. Now, Pete, unfortunately, don't have it with us now, but imagine a top hat this high, full of feathers, went into something as big as that. So the most expensive thing in a golf course equipment was the golf ball. And a technician would get 2 pieces of leather, like a baseball cover, sew them together, leave a small hole in it, and stuff 1 top hat full of boiled feathers into it. If he could make 4 a day, that was remarkable. Most of them was 2 a day. Obviously, the price of golf balls was very, very expensive. And I'll pass this around so you get an idea, and I'll discuss what's in here as you go. Whoops, as you go. I'm kind of wired up here. There you go. So what they've got in front of them is a first golf ball, a wooden golf ball, then one called the feathery that lasted until about 1860, and then some enterprising character found natural rubber, made it into a mold, and it was solid rubber. And we've got a couple up here called the gutta percha golf ball, or gutty. That was quite remarkable. I don't think it would not go very far, but certainly better than the old feathery golf ball. And then what was happening, though, because it was completely round and smooth, you could not control it. So that little display there shows it being nicked with a knife, and the more it was nicked, the straighter it went. So some ingenious character decided to make a mold, pour the liquid gutta percha into it. Then he had what they call a machine gutty. Then, in 1909, a guy from Ohio named Haskell invented the Haskell golf ball. And all of you people that have taken a golf ball apart years ago, with all the rubber winding on it, there's one here. I'll toss that to you, Sharon, if I can. That's that's the original Haskell ball, and it shows some of the rubber winding coming out of it. And that's what we older golfers all had years ago. Now golf balls can be any material inside, doesn't matter how many layers they have. One thing they must have in common today is the golf ball can't be any bigger than 1.68 inches in diameter, and it cannot weigh more than 1.68 ounces for competitive play. Now that came about some years ago because the states could not have a same golf ball they had in Great Britain, and Britain had a smaller golf ball, 1.62 inches. So anyway, that's how the golf went from there to there. And it wasn't until about 1960 that the American ball was adopted around the world. And about that time is when the Europeans really started coming to the fore in various golf tournaments. So the golf ball is historic. It goes back, as I say, all the way back to the wooden golf ball they used initially, up to the present modern golf balls, which go, by the way, too far. They sometimes should, I think, limit that, because golf balls going as far as they do are really making all golf courses obsolete. So we're going back now. We're still playing over in Britain. There are a lot of famous golf courses over there. I've been very lucky and fortunate in playing most of the top line courses over the years. And it is not till you get inland do you find a golf course like this one. Now, you people that are interested in watching golf on television, watch the Ryder Cup that's coming up in 2 weeks. It's at Gleneagles, near Auchterarder in Scotland, and they'll be playing a golf course much like you see here, as opposed to when you watch a British Open, because for some reason or other, the Royal and Ancient decided that they have to play all the British Open championships on seaside golf courses, or almost all seaside golf courses. So that's one thing that it makes it a bit awkward as far as we in North America, because you do not see the type of golf course that St. Andrews is on television as well, because it's quite remarkable, by the way. It's the old course at St. Andrews, which goes back to 1754, is actually inland from the new course, which is right on the North Sea, and it's only 165 years old. So I mean, it's quite remarkable. And I think there are now, how many courses at St. Andrews? Right, 5 or 6? About 6, I think, at St. Andrews now, and they're all owned by the St. Andrews Trust. They're public courses. You can't get on them. They're all too busy, particularly the old course and the new course, and very expensive to play, thanks to our American friends who will pay anything to play there. And generally speaking, not nearly the condition that we see this golf course here. Thanks, Sharon, picking this stuff up for me. What have I got to look at here? Oh, the original rules of golf were quite fascinating. There were 13 of them way back, and they, I won't go through them, but they're quite remarkable. And amazingly, a lot of them are in effect today, such as a lost golf ball or a ball out of bounds. There's still the same rules as we have at the present time. It doesn't mention about when you break the wooden golf ball in half that you play a larger portion. That was kind of kicked out some time ago. And while we're at that, for those people that are in the room that have played a fair amount of golf and not aware of this, the rules of golf, there's 2 main bodies for it. One is called the Royal and Ancient Golf Club of St. Andrews, and that's a meeting of all different golfers in Great Britain. The other organization is the United States Golf Association. They're from Far Hills, New Jersey. That's where they're located. And if you didn't know this, you will now. No golf professionals sit on the board for making the rules of golf. It's all amateur golfers. So when you blame your pro for some stupid rule, it wasn't his idea. So all they do is interpret the rule for you. And I must admit, the rule book is about that thick. I don't know whether, we have a young pro in the room here, Jeremy Jeffrey down there. You've got a decision book yet, Jeremy? Yeah. About yay big? Yeah. A decision book, and that's, they have to, and it's rules that aren't in the rule book. And so those 2 organizations dictate the rules of golf around the world, and they, in fact, the Royal Canadian Golf Association that we have here really adopt what the RNA dictate every 4 years. And they'll be coming pretty soon, I think, the 4 years up. Where are we at here? Famous golfers, I guess we go back a bit further. When they were playing golf in Holland, it became illegal to play golf on Sundays unless you went to church first, little things like that. You could not play golf within the city walls of a city because it was too dangerous. You had to go outside the various city walls. And then to Britain, every town seems to have walls around it. And so that was something that we found quite unique over there when you look at where some of the golf courses originated, particularly when you go to Britain and you realize, almost all the golf courses are beside railway stations. Why? Because that's how you got there. Because the horse and buggy or whatever. And I'll be throwing trivia at you as we go along. And the original golf hole, if you want to call it that, was just like a little cuppy thing in the ground. You made with your hand, and that's what you putted your ball into. Well, some ingenious character found a tile yard. Well, he went to the tile yard and he found a piece of tile 2 feet long, happened to be 4 1/4 inches in diameter. Guess what? Today the modern golf cup is 4 1/4 inches. That hasn't changed in over 100 years. Isn't that amazing? We all wish it was 6 or 8 inches wide, but it's not. And they're talking now about playing more what they call comfortable rules, about lessening what we now declare, like you play the golf ball where it lies, or you set it up. Maybe having a golf course with cups like this, this only larger, is to make it more fun. But that's where this came from, the 4 1/4 inches. Kind of interesting. But a lot of people weren't aware of that. Flagpoles, one in the corner. That one happens to be 8 feet high. There's no regulation about flagpole height. They can be any height. When you go to Great Britain and play golf, particularly in Scotland where the terrible winds they have over there, a flagpole may only be 4 feet high because something that high falls out of the cup. So they make them quite a bit shorter. These are all little things that those that golf a bit may, if you ever travel over there, you'll see what I'm talking about. We mentioned Mary Queen of Scots being our first lady golfer. I mentioned the bunkers made by the sheep. And by the way, if you ever visit West Virginia, near the famous Greenbrier Hotel, consider going to a golf course called Oakhurst. Our daughter Jeannie heard about it some years ago, and my wife and I stopped there seven years ago to visit Jeannie's daughter. And the golf course is 9 holes. The only thing you can use that is yours, you can wear your golf shoes if you want to, and a glove. You use their golf clubs and their golf balls. The golf clubs are 1860 vintage. They're brand new, but that's how old they are. You get 5 of them, and you get these. I've brought 2 of the balls here from Oakhurst, the solid rubber golf balls, and if you can hit one 160 yards, that's what they said in the pro shop, you're doing well. So the holes were much shorter back then, of course. So this little golf course still exists. Who cuts the grass? Sheep. So, and there's a big stockade in the middle of the golf course with sheep in it. And then that leads to something else though. How did you tee your golf ball up back in those days? We use a term on television that you'll hear called a tee box. Well, the tee box was something that I remember as a young guy, was something like this, with a pail there of water, the pail here of sand. You dampen your finger, little clump of sand, put it on the ground, build a tee, put your golf ball on it. So that's the original tee box. That's the original tee. Then somebody got smart back in the early part of the last century and invented these little celluloid tees. You probably can't see from where you are, but the Ready Tee Company designed these, and these are original. These are all about 80, 90 years old. And they're the original tees. Now, why are they so short when a modern tee looks like that? Because the wood heads back in that day, as you'll see this collection here, are much more shallow. And the idea of hitting a golf ball way up in the air back then didn't exist. Everything was hit low, and ran. Because if you play golf in Britain, the idea is to keep the ball very low because of the wind, because you get more run. So it makes sense. So tees then became maybe the first thing that we ever saw that was patented. Now at the same time, now I'm moving up now into maybe 1890. I'm going to talk about some golfers. You've all heard of Tiger Woods, but have you ever heard of Harry Vardon? He was the first superstar. He was born in England, became a professional golfer in the late 1890s. Among other things, won 6 British Open championships and 1 American Open championship. And the first time in history, and never happened since, the United States Golf Association asked him if he would play in the United States Open Championship one year. He said, yes, but I can't make it because it's a 7-day boat trip to get there, and I can't make it then. He said, well, when can you come? I can come 3 weeks later. Okay, we'll put the championship back 3 weeks. Can you imagine that? Yeah. You imagine putting something back for Tiger Woods, say, because I can't play, they say tough luck. So with Vardon, they did that. They put it back. I don't know whether he won 1 championship. I don't know whether he won the one he played in that time or not. But so he became the first star and the first athlete ever to endorse something in sports. The golf ball was the Vardon Flyer, which is a gutta-percha golf ball, and he made a fortune at it, I guess. And the fact, recently, there's been a movie made with it playing Francis Ouimet from the States. What's it called, The Greatest Game or something? He and Ted Ray came over from Britain to play. It was this,
Greatest game ever?
pardon?
Greatest game ever played. Yeah, greatest game ever.
Okay, yeah. So it was actually, and Vardon was in this movie, well, not Vardon, whoever played the part. So that it isn't often that a live golfer is actually recognized in a recent American movie. So we go from Vardon up to probably, I guess in my estimation maybe, greatest golfer of all time. Never a golf pro. His name was Bobby Jones. And what he did from 1921 to 1930 is remarkable. For you guys that are golfers, in a 9-year span he won 4 US Opens, was second 4 times, won 2 or 3 Masters, no, pardon me, no, not Masters, 2 or 3 British Opens. He could not play in the PGA because he was an amateur, and there was no Masters yet, so he couldn't play in that either. And he did all that by the time he turned 28 years old. Then he retired from competitive golf. He was a lawyer from Atlanta, and this last week, just went off the air on Sunday, the Atlanta Country Club, that was his home golf course, where he learned to play golf as a kid. Well, Jones not only won all these championships as an amateur golfer and beat every pro he ever talked to, including Walter Hagen, Gene Sargent, Johnny Farrell, Tommy Armour, all the great players of that time. He was also able to make a decent living as a lawyer and became quite successful. Then he moved to a little town at the time called Augusta, to the east of Atlanta, and built what is now called the Augusta National Golf Club, where the Masters is held every year since 1934. So Jones, in my estimation, has got to be up there somewhere. And then we had the next great golfers of all time, and there'd be Sam Snead, Ben Hogan, and Byron Nelson. You heard those names before, anybody? Okay. They just died recently. They're all born in the same year, 1910, and they all died around the age of 87 to 92. And they won everything you can think of. And again, I have to emphasize to people that you'll think that, like Rory McIlroy that's playing is wonderful now, how good he is. These golfers, particularly those 3, Nelson, Hogan, and Snead, there were no big tournaments on during the Second World War. And that was the prime of their life. So they missed out on winning the PGA, the Masters, British Open, US Open. So who knows what they would have won. And they certainly won enough after that. More modern again, we have to go up to the Nicklaus and Player and Arnold Palmer. And for those that enjoy watching golf on television, you can thank Arnold Palmer for that. Because Arnie and TV came along at the very same time, and he was flamboyant and just a guy to see, and he had his army, and we all enjoyed watching him play. And television loved him so much that even today, ready for this one, Tiger Woods makes the most money in golf, out of golf, in the vicinity of $70 million a year. Poor Phil Mickelson's down to $53 million, I think, this year, or last year. The next wealthiest person out of golf now is Arnold Palmer. And the next one after that is Jack Nicklaus. And neither have played in a golf tournament for probably 10 years that I know of anyway. So, but they do it through endorsements. And Nicklaus only charges $1 million a pop to put his name on a golf course. If I design it, it's $1 million up front, then of course there's expenses afterwards. So there's bringing up to date. Then now, of course, we have Tiger Woods and the golfers of today. I want to get that splurge about Bobby Jones though, because what he did by age 28 is never, and there probably never will be equaled again. Are you getting tired yet? No. Not bored? No. Okay. Let's get to the present time. Let's talk about St. Thomas and golf. What I've done here is put okay, thank you. Thanks. This is the original golf links. It says links here somewhere.
Right here.
Down.
Right at the top there.
Oh, there, up there.
Links.
Unfortunately, I have spent hours up in the attic of this place over the last 25 years, I guess, trying to find something about what the golf course looked like. And one of our former stewards, Eddie James, said he remembers seeing something up there, but it must have been tossed out. So we don't know what the golf course looked like, but it was along here somewhere. And the St. Thomas Street Railway at that time went right to the park. And you got off and played a game of golf and got back on the train again and went back home. But the golf course was lasted 10 years. It was very, very short apparently. It competed continuously with other events that were going on. Mr. Still actually, I guess, leased most of the property. Is that right, Pete? Still, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
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 There was the gun club. There was the bicycle track.
Yeah.
This baseball diamond. This is pretty much where Emsley is now.
Yes.
And so the golf links were just to the north and to the east.
Yeah. So we again we have no idea what it looked, but it lasted 10 years, from 1899 to 1909. Then after that, they looked at various places in St. Thomas to build a better golf course. One was Spawn's Flat, which was down off of 4 Highway. The Parish Farm, which is south off of Southdale. And they ended up by going to the Whaley Farm.
No, this way.
No.
Going east. This is still
Going east. We're going east now. East to where Talbot Park Golf Club ended up. And that became the Elgin Golf Club. Oh, here's the first clubhouse. Okay, remember that well. This is the members of the golf club at the time, with a gentleman from Walkerville visiting the golf club. That clubhouse was there until 1946, and it was the base for the golf course. The 9th green was just to my right here. This is where I learned how to play golf. Was not that place. This diagram. I vaguely remember it, but I checked with Don Anderson about 30 years ago. I said, Mr. Anderson, I've got something over there. I said, is this what the golf course looked like? He said, that's exactly right. He said, I said, there aren't any trees. He said, there weren't any trees. I've got a few little spots here and there showing where trees were, but they really didn't exist. That was what the golf course looked like then. What have we got here, Pete?
This is the updated.
Yeah, this is the golf course as it looked as it closed. That all of you remember, Sharon and Jim for sure, know what the golf course looked like. It extended quite dramatically. The clubhouse, original clubhouse, was here. When Timken Roller Bearing moved to St. Thomas in 1945, I happened to be up at the orchard at the time, which was up there, and with my dad, and I'll get to the Pullen family in a minute, but Mr. Dunn is the president of Timken Roller Bearing. Came to St. Thomas, stood up there. There was a field to the west of the golf club, over to Alexander Ave, and he said to Don Anderson, who was, I think, with the board of trade at the time, he said, Mr. Anderson, what do you want? He said, want all of it. So they bought the whole works. They were going to build a steel mill on the golf course property. Luckily for the Pullen family, there was not enough water available, because all we had were the Mitchell wells south of the city to supply the water. So the factory was built, and that clubhouse you saw just recently was torn down in favor of the next one, Pete? What was the South
Still the same one.
That gives an idea. That's the latest fourth green. Then that was the ninth green back in that era. And as you can see, the place is loaded with trees. These trees here are Dutch elm. And I remember as a kid, they were still standing there like skeletons. They never, that tree, there was an apple, it was a russet apple tree, and when it fell down some years later, I never kept them, but 11 old golf balls came out, and they were completely smooth. They had been worn over the years. I don't know who these golfers are. Next one, Pete. Oh, well, we go by that. That's don't need that.
I would like to point out, just not to raise anybody's animosity, but 1063 Tolbert Street is now the address of Walmart.
Oh, up there. Yes, right, Pete. It is. 1063 Talbot Street is the name of. That's Walmart's address. Oh, that's Talbot Park. As here, that's a better picture. That shows you as it is. I'll get a pointer. Here, Sharon, you do it.
Jazzy.
Whoops. Hate these wires. Here, let you point out. Do you want to point the holes out? I got this. I got this with me.
Oh.
Here,
don't need that.
you show the people where the holes are.
Oh God. Where's the clubhouse? Where's T?
Here's first year there.
This is 1. 2 goes back over there. 3 comes down here. This is 4. This is 5. This is 6. 7 goes over there. 8 goes along the railroad tracks. And this is 9 coming down.
Well done. Right off the bat. Yay. You can see that at the close of the golf course that did have a few trees on it. And we always laughed. In fact, I don't know how many members of this golf club, including Pat and Don King sitting over here, were members of that we have
A lot.
a lot. I don't know how many. How many? 20, 30?
No, it's probably more than that.
More than that? There were members at Talbot Park at one time or another, and but it was the story was, and some of our best players said, if you could hit it straight in this golf course, Union was a piece of cake. And I'm not kidding you. It was much more narrow than like number 1 and any of the holes here. So that was the that was a tourist home prior to this. The clubhouse was here, by the way. The one you saw the big picture of. It's right here. It was torn down. That became the offices for Timken Bearing. Moved the factory, then it became the clubhouse. And fortunately, Timken Roller Bearing owned the golf course right until their. Is Joanne here? Joe. Hi, my daughter. When did you buy the golf course from Timken? 1993. Yeah. That's my daughter back there. So they bought the golf course from Timken and maintained it until its close in the year 2000. So that was the Elgin Golf Club, St. Thomas Public Golf Club, and the Talbot Park Golf Club. So yes.
Jack, ask how many here were ever members of that club.
In this room? How many members here from Tulsa? Oh my gosh. There's thank you. Dozens of them here. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? Thanks for the question, Don. By the way, before I go any further, how about any questions besides what Donnie had? Questions, anybody?
We'll have some at the end, I'm sure.
Okay, well, keep going then?
Yeah, let's
keep
get
going,
to it.
keep going.
We're just about
All
to
right.
get to union.
All right. Well, what do you got past that?
Right here.
Back to the beginning?
Nope, this is, no, I'm going into starting Union, the history of Union Golf Course.
Okay. So,
Go to the Wiley Farm.
go to the Wiley Farm. Now we got this place. What happened? Searching around, they hired the top architect in Canada. Name is Thompson, to design the golf course, and he did a wonderful job. He designed it that's him, Stanley Thompson. His brother Frank had been an excellent golfer. In fact, his brother was a Canadian amateur champion one year, and this gentleman was no hacker himself. And he built this golf course here, the first one I remember seeing when I was a kid. In fact, somebody asked me when I first played this. Oh, that's it. Okay, this is the golf course I remember, 1963. But I played my first game of golf here in 1940. Is that a while ago or what? That was here. I played golf before that, actually, at the Elgin Golf Club. But so 1940 here, and it was probably at the time one of the best shorter golf courses going, and it's quite amazing how yardages come up. I was mentioning to Jeremy Jeffrey just today or yesterday, I said, I did some homework, Jeremy, and I've got a scorecard down there from this golf course here, and I've got a scorecard from the new golf course as we know it now over there, and some of the holes haven't changed all that much, but it's remarkably, before they invented lasers, how long some of the holes were. Oh, by the time I got fiddling around with this old scorecard, we lost over 150 yards on the golf course, simply because they were like measuring down then up, sort of thing, instead of a straight line. So holes, every golf course in the world shrunk when they invented lasers. Now, so that golf course, as we see here, 1922. The Elgin room is original. It's 1922. This was a veranda, as was that going down here when I was a kid. And this is all open. So eventually they decided to add some more on. In 1965, they added the grill room on, and the fire offices, enclosed all this to give us the room we have now. The men's locker room was right behind that screen at one time. Yes?
Was it 18 holes right from the start?
Good question. No. No, in 1922, Thompson designed the first 9 and then started adding holes as he went along, came back as money came available. And by 1927, I know that the history says 1927, but there's a photograph. Well, here it is here. This is what the golf course looked like. But I would have to question whether it wasn't until 1931, maybe, that the holes were finished, because that picture that was taken in January of 1932 on what is now number 7 green, almost look like they're standing near a sod. You got that picture, I think, Pete, haven't you? With all the gentlemen in it?
Yes, I do. Just a second.
Oh, there you are. See this?
Yeah.
That's recently laid. Well, that picture was taken in 1932 in January, by the way. January 1932. Something interesting. This is Don Anderson's father, R.M., my dad, my grandfather. And different people along here that you probably would know if I mentioned Mr. Johnson. A few doctors through here. So that was a That was 32. So that was, imagine playing golf. Look at, no jackets, jackets and sweaters. This is an interesting picture here with the golf bag. Old prints you'll ever see. The golf bag was the last thing invented. You had to carry your golf bag with a bundle. In fact, this golf course in Oakhurst, I played it in West Virginia. They don't give you a golf bag because there weren't any golf bags in 1860. So you got to carry these things around. So it's kind of different. What have we got after that, Pete?
Actually, we're going back.
Okay, go back a bit.
We're going back a couple. There is actually a picture of the Andersons, which I think you should take a look at. There's the. Now that's just interesting. The
clubhouse
attire. There's the clubhouse in the back.
You can see the open veranda here.
Whoop.
Oh, there's a good photograph.
There's us from the sky here, but let me just go back a couple.
Oh.
There's the toilet room,
Yeah,
the room next door.
Yeah, that's the Elgin room taken, no idea. Can you tell by the lady's hair what year it would be? It was probably the 20s, I imagine. Here's the veranda there's where you're sitting.
Oops.
He'd moved. This is this is where you're sitting now in here. Through here. There. I'm not moving. You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. The pro shop, my dad's, I might as well get the Pullens while I'm at it.
Yeah.
My dad came over here in 1922 to follow all his cousins who were railroad men. And R.M. Anderson, Don's dad, heard about this young chap that had been a golf apprentice in Britain, south of London particularly. And he looked at him and had an interview, and he said, "Do you want to be a golf pro?"
They're the Andersons, father and son.
There's Don and there's Dad, yeah. Well, leave that there for a second. D.H. Anderson, who you all know with the store, was born in the year 1910. He became a member of this golf club the day he was born. So he died in 2002, and he was a 92-year member. Can you imagine that? So that's something. Okay, next one. Oh, that's my dad. That's a typical British golf swing of the era. Because you had to keep the golf ball low because of the wind over there, and they all had kind of flat golf swings. Everything, for those that golf, they all had to hook the ball. Everything hooked all the time. So that was the way you played golf back then. Oh, look at the bridge going across what is now number 17.
There it is.
Oh, is that the same bridge?
Yeah.
Well, that's not wrong. That's number 16 then. This is 16.
And that's the view that was just out the window.
16 being, well, we'll show you that big picture again maybe. But that's going across. This is number 18 fairway here. This is the driving range now, and that was 16th hole. In fact, the 16th green was actually on what is now part of the number 17 tee off. You remember that?
How old do you think I am?
You were there. You're going like this. Okay, next one. And this is, again, this would be the old 15th green, if that's a flagpole, and the tee off going that way, and that's 18's up there. Kind of forlorn looking place, isn't it? Okay, to go on, Pete. Next one.
We've seen this one there, so.
No, we did that.
No, we didn't do that.
Oh, what a sorry group there. That's my brother. Don Anderson, and Dave Moser.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Remember Dave? Dave was a fine golfer. I don't know what he's doing now, but he was a good golfer. Tom passed away in '96, and D.H. died in 2002. So there. And by the way, Don Anderson wasn't a bad golfer in his own right. He only won the club championship here 18 times. Can you imagine? Oh, this is Dale Thompson, and my brother Tom, Don, Jack Waite. Oh, Jerry, our manager. Yeah. At the time, looking at what was going to become the new golf course. That's about 1990. This picture, no, 1970. This picture. Oh, that's C.E. Robinson, who he was an apprentice under Thompson and became the architect for the new holes. What they did, that group, they bought to the west of us 78 acres for $30,000 and designed the new holes, and that's what we see over there or up here if he's got them. This is a golf course. So the old golf course went about this far. That was the old course, and all these holes were added on later. And they did vary. Some say the same. A lot of them were lengthened. Old number 7 was along here. It's long gone. Number 2 was in here, and it's long gone. But and this is the lake that wasn't there. That was a ravine at one time. The driving range now was the old 15th fairway and 16th fairway. So this is the scale, by the way, is 1 inch equals 100 feet. And the remarkably thing about this golf course, I don't think you realize how far you walk. Above sea level, the 15th hole is 614 feet above sea level. Behind number 18T, it's 704 feet. That's 90 feet higher there than there.
Yeah, we know that.
And you know that? which brings up some trivia, Jim. And this, I don't agree with this, but anyway. Do you know if you walk 18 holes on a full-length golf course, you burn 2,000 calories. If you ride 18 holes, as some of us do, you still burn 1,300. I feel better already.
How many calories in a beer?
We have a gentleman sitting in front who I play with every Monday morning, Al Slater. That's if you walk. This gentleman does not walk. He runs 18 holes. Oh, I don't know how you do it, Al. Okay, what have we got? So the golf course, and as we...
This is the picture of the modern.
That upside down?
Yeah, well, no, the lettering is upside down, but your previous map is...
oh, that way.
It's
up.
North is the bottom.
Right,
So, yes,
yeah, this is north down here.
That's right.
This is the Union Road down here.
So I flipped the other aerial view.
Go ahead.
So,
Go ahead.
so
Yeah.
you'd have it the same.
So who doesn't know what this little creek is called? Beaver. Hey, way to go. And it's been in flood recently, but it keeps us going, and we're luckily that the negotiations with the Upper Thames Valley let us pump enough water out of that the creek every year to fill this reservoir. So we haven't run out of water yet, so thank goodness for that. Not a dry. What you got next, Pete? Oh. Stand up, Jeremy. Let them see you.
Stand up, Jeremy.
Here's our newest golf professional, Jeremy Jeffrey. The newest and the oldest. There you are.
That's the end of our pictures.
It's only in the last 5 years or 4 years he stopped calling me Grandpa. Anyway, okay, next one, Pete.
That's the end of our pictures.
Oh, that's the picture. Good. Let me get back to other stuff here then. So we have the best golf course going. For those that aren't familiar with ratings, we are now ranked number 36 in Canada. And there are over 1,800 golf courses in this country. So that's quite remarkable for a small town like St. Thomas having a golf course rated that high. We are also Rolex Watch Company put out a big book every year of the 1,000 best golf courses in the world, and we're in it.
What number?
Now we're not in the top 100, the 200, the 300, or 400, but I think somewhere around 600 and something, which is pretty good, yeah. But being even considered. But the only thing that bothered me about the book or the article when I read it is it's about 25 lines. A modest club with a major golf course. And why do we have a bigger golf course? Any idea? From the previous one? Well, let me tell you. What was happening, the Hunt Club moved from around where they used to be, or maybe you didn't know this, but the Hunt Club used to be around the University of Western Ontario. It circled it, just like this. The clubhouse is still there. If you go by the main gates, look back in the trees, you'll see a 2-story building, and that's the clubhouse. I think it's now a residence for the United Church, I believe. And so they moved in 1960 to East Oxford Street, and not only did they get bigger, they went into 7,200 yards. We were still fussing around at 6,000 yards, which is nothing compared to what they had. And Sunningdale opened in 1935, and as the Hunt Club got longer, Mr. Thompson decided, by the way, Hunt Club, or Sunningdale is privately owned. Did you know that? Mm-hmm. The Thompson family owned Sunningdale. They have 2 great golf courses there, but the first course is called the Thompson 18, the second one's called the Robinson 18. And in in the 60s, they started lengthening the Thompson course to almost be as long as the Hunt Club. So we were kind of really falling behind. And Craiggowan was built in Woodstock. It was longer. So it was time that St. Thomas got on the same road and lengthened the course. So for $30,000, we went from 6,000 yards to 6,850, which we are now, off the back tees. I don't play back there. I don't know who does, but some people do, I guess. So the golf course has got that much longer in the last, since 1972 when that course opened up. We've got about 350 members, probably 375 members. We wish we had more. It's the best golf per buck you can get anywhere around. And not because I'm a member here, but this golf course has by far the best one you can consider. We're even rated ahead of the magnificent Red Tail. So that's something to think about. We're higher and only a couple of notches behind the Hunt Club. So there aren't many golf courses in this part of the world that compare with Union. So I'll leave that part with you. I always think I'm a great guy for trivia. Any idea how many dibbles are on a golf ball? Can you hazard a guess?
340.
Well, that's good. As low as 292, and as up. How many?
392.
Pardon me?
392.
Up to 500. I can't imagine putting 500 dibbles on a golf ball. There's no regulation about that part of it, so they can be. But I always feel the people that play the game, and that's why I feel so badly. They have forgotten the history. Most of them aren't interested in like cup size, flagpoles, golf clubs. They just play the game and come away not any smarter than when they started. So I think I think knowing a bit about what you do is worthwhile. Jeremy Jeffrey asked me a question. Go to ask it, Jeremy?
Go ahead.
Go ahead?
Yes.
What do I see the future of golf? Well, having started in 1935, I hit my first golf ball 79 years ago this month. Been going at it ever since. And we've seen ups and downs in the business. I haven't been in the business myself for over 40 years. We have seen a lot of it, the good, some of the bad. This golf club, for years, and years, back when Jerry Martin was the manager, could tell you that, they were spending all the membership money taken this year to pay last year's debts. They never got ahead of themselves and always had a bank loan. But because of good management that we had over the succeeding years and the good boards of directors, we were basically solvent and doing and keeping our own heads above water. So the golf club is the golf business is I think is here to stay. I wish it were quite as awkward for some people. I find it so tough for people that are working with children. And my daughters are in this boat, that their husbands work in London, and they get on a golf course is difficult. But I do support what our pro is doing. We've got a lot of junior members, and I can relate a very sad story to my own experience. For many years, I was a part owner of a golf course in Florida called Royal Oak. Ultra private golf courses. Now, one, for an example, I use the name Royal Montreal, which is our first golf club in Canada, by the way, to be recognized as a golf course. He was a pro at a golf course where the CEOs played, the underlings played at Royal Montreal. Can you imagine? So and this guy had most of the shares. And of course we'd argue, why not more junior golfers? He says, well, because we wanted to have it for the adults. When I finally sold my shares, we had one junior member. As of last year, the golf course is closed. So, and it's a shame because it was as good as junior, by the way. Just as hard, same length, quite well maintained, so that was so golf is going a long ways. As long as we bring our juniors in, if you have grandchildren, encourage them to play the game, because that's where it's got to be. If they keep playing, and I just get so pleased when I'm down the range down there and seeing a whole bunch of young guys hitting golf balls, or young ladies, and so it's the way to come. And Sharon, Jeannie, Joanne, Janet are here, Sharon's here, all young ladies golfing years ago and still playing. So that's part of it there. Now, I think I've talked long enough. And I've got any questions, anybody? Yes?
Jack, you said you've been playing golf 79 years.
That's right.
Can you share one or two experiences that stand out in your mind about you being in the golf business that long? Is there anything that stands out?
Yeah, I could do that.
Share? Okay.
Well, yes. The early bird tournament we have here, prior to that, prior to the early bird, the Ontario Junior Championship. Now here's this young guy from St. Thomas. Nobody's ever heard of St. Thomas, by the way. And I get to play the Ontario Junior. Who do I get to play with? A guy named Jerry Kesselring.
Oh.
Now, Jerry Kesselring was one of the best golfers in Canada as a junior. Not just, anybody. And of course, I'm terrified. And so he wins it. I think I finished fourth. It's a 2-day event. And no, a 1-day event, 36 holes in 1 day. And Brother Don caddied for me. And I played with Jerry. I thought, geez, this guy's pretty good. And so the next year, the early bird starts. And who do I get drawn with that? In the first early bird? Mo Norman.
Oh.
They thought they should have the two youngest guys in the field play together, and I thought, holy mackerel. And of course, he wins the early bird. I think I finished fourth that year as well. But anyway, and I was going with Dora at the time, and I thought, there is no way I'm going to work that hard to be as good as those two. So I thought, I'll just sit back and make some money. So that was that part of it. As far as the business goes, I give my mother and father great credit, and because they had 4 boys and 2 girls, and Tom became pro here for 35 years. Dad was in the business for 24 years until he died. I was in for 40 some odd years. Excuse me. And Brother Don, who probably was the best of the Pullen family golfers, he was a rep for Spalding's for 25 or so years. Who after that was it, Brian? Was it Goliath?
He went with Goliath, and I took his job as well.
You did that? Did you? I didn't know that. Oh, okay. Yeah, Goliath was a company in Toronto, right? Toronto, and they made the best knockoff golf clubs anywhere. You couldn't tell a Goliath club from a Ram or a Callaway or anything because they looked exactly the same. And how many lawsuits did you have to face? Don said they always found a way of tweaking the golf club so it didn't look quite like a real one. So I added it up the other day. So counting Don in the business, Joanne and Hugh being in the business, Dora and I being in the business. And by the way, the only reason I got as far as I did was because my wife Dora, who is a professional bookkeeper, by the way, thank goodness, because I spent it and she was making it. So we got through the golf business quite easily that way. But the Pullens have put 150 years into the business altogether. That's counting all of us. And so I remember those things. I remember watching some of the great golfers, watching Sam Snead in 1941 and Byron Nelson a few years later, and Ben Hogan and Nicklaus and Palmer and Tiger. Even saw the ladies in London a couple weeks ago. Who went over to London, by the way, to see the ladies play golf? And Bud, you worked, I think.
Yeah,
Well, number 16?
16.
I was too tired to walk that far. But don't they play well?
Scary.
It is scary. It is so remarkable to watch the lady golfers, particularly the Koreans. They're like 125 pounds, and there would be any man in this room would love to hit as far as they hit it, and putt like gangbusters. I sat on number 8 green. It's a par 3 for 1 hour waiting for Jeannie and her friend Lee Lyle. See, they went somewhere, and I watched 7 groups go by the 8th hole. One go put in the bunker, still made par. That's 21 girls. They had 8 birdies on that hole. So it's, of course, I felt embarrassed for the Hunt Club because I think they should have had the tee offs further back because it was too easy for them. So highlights. I've had a lot. I've seen a lot of funny things happen on golf courses. I've seen some terrible accidents on golf courses. Probably 4 or 5 hospital cases with people hitting. By the way, in golf, I think I speak from 40 years in the business. It isn't somebody hollering 4 way over there that might hit you with a golf ball. It's the person you're golfing with. Right, Pat?